Well, this is what I've got. Actually, I'm going to skip forward because I know some of us have to leave here in a minute. But this is the way that you could sort of schedule your time in the online course. On Monday and Tuesday, you could review the student postings, and just at that point, you're just looking at them. You don't have to interact at all. It's actually helpful if you don't, in my experience, to allow them to set the groundwork for the discussion, unless there's something that's inappropriate that needs to be responded to in a private way or taken off of the discussion board. On Wednesday, you could do a response to each group. You wouldn't have to do a response to each individual person. So if you've got groups of 3, you've got 21 students, there's 7 groups, you'd make 7 postings. 1 to each group, just to let them know you've read what they've done, maybe summarize it a little bit, highlight where they're really on track, highlight where they might be off track, sort of redirect that in the discussion, obviously always in a very kind and positive manner. Thursday, you could then go back in and you could react to any group responses to your email or to your post. And then you could also start interacting with some individuals at that point. I would caution you to keep track of the individuals with whom you interact, because you don't want to interact with the same individuals all the time, therefore either making them look like teacher's pet or making them feel picked on. We have to be real careful, and it seems like such a small thing, but it might even be helpful to make a schedule of the students you're responding to. Or if you'd like to take a more authentic approach, as you respond to them, write them down. So that, because some students, just like in the face-to-face classroom, are easier to respond to than others. They have more depth of thought. But those students who don't have as much might need a little probing, and so that's a good way to probe them. And they're not going to feel picked on because they know you go in, you talk to members of the group, but you talk to somebody different every time. It won't take them long to figure that out. And again, there's that predictability for them. Maybe end your group discussion on Friday, maybe have assignment submission on Sunday. And again, this is just a sample. It's not dictating anything, or not saying this is the only way to do it. But this might be one way to manage your time so that you're visible in the class and you're not spending all of your time on your online class. Some schools limit them to 150 words on their initial post, and I think that's helpful because it forces them to prioritize the information that they've read and what is the most important information, rather than writing everything that they read. So, and then of course the key to this content is assessing the participation and being visible. We really have to know that they know what we think of what they're doing. In terms of the types of responses you might give, there are probing responses, obviously, just asking open-ended questions, sort of the Socratic method to deepen the discussion. There's a lot of literature out there that says that teachers need to be constantly visible on discussion boards, and this sort of motivation through proximity that we sometimes use in face-to-face classrooms. I think that leads to more of a instructor-led design, and I like it being student-centered rather than instructor-led. But that's, again, that's just me. It is an option to go in and to, ask probing questions of each student. And I know people who do that, who are very good online instructors, probing question of each student or extending the discussion for each student. But personally, I like to maximize my own time in a way that I wouldn't have to do that many postings. And I want them to discuss with each other, not with me. Obviously, peer support, you could have critical friends groups. They're just a support group. They give each other advice on how the assessment or how their project is meeting the criteria for assessment. They proof pay. Self-selection is an option, but I think with self-selection, particularly in an undergraduate program where you may have people from the brick-and-mortar campus taking these classes, you might get stuck with groups of people who know each other so well that they're talking so much outside of class that they're not going to be talking with each other inside of class. And that can be an issue, that you email them and say, I didn't see the feedback that you gave to your group members, and they say, oh, but we just met on Friday and did that. So setting up for that sort of thing, okay, that's fine, but please post what you did in the group. I think it's useful to build synchronous and asynchronous means of collaboration for the group. So the WIMBA, and then also they have their discussion board. With WIMBA, they have the conference call number that they can call. So they're not, if they had a three-way call, somebody's racking up long-distance charges, most likely. So WIMBA is nice because they can use that feature to have a conference call. And I don't think it's unfair, and Peggy, I'd be interested in what you think. I don't think it's unfair to allow them to grade each other's work in terms of their participation in the product. Okay, interaction with the content. How do we encourage interaction with the content, which is so important online, and something we take for granted face-to-face. So face-to-face, the interaction with the content ends up being interaction with us and interaction with the textbook. So we've got to figure out how to do this online. So maybe we chunk the large assignments, and maybe we just say there are 3 to 5 pages that you'll turn in rather than 20. And we sort of focus on those outcomes that we have for our course rather than that paper that we really love because we've done it. And it really, we enjoy doing it, but maybe the whole paper doesn't meet all of our outcomes. Maybe it could be shaved down, focused, maybe a little more intent on the outcomes rather than what we've been doing. We can focus on concepts instead of the discrete facts. A lot of our students online don't see textbooks as something that should be read. They should be used as a resource, because these students aren't reading things cover to cover. They're saying, what do I need to know? And then they go online, and hopefully they find it from a credible source. And more they're beginning to know what a credible source is, because I think they've addressed that more in K through 12. Maybe we look at their assignments as formative rather than summative, so that part of the learning activity is the feedback that we give on that assignment. And so it becomes, again, that cycle of performance and then feedback and revision, which is a very educative process. And then we could interact with students through the comments in their paper. And this is another issue, particularly with online. I think with face-to-face, we can get away with writing a grade on a paper and give it back to a student. But in online, they want to know why. And so interacting with the student, even if it's about positive things, especially if it's about positive things in their paper, is really meaningful to them. Even if we don't give them a number, we just give them the comments. That nurtures that sense of connectedness with the student. And if